Hi guys, it's Kelly Latavola here, and I'm back with another video for Neat and Tangled. Today we are going to be using my favorite nut, and obviously you couldn't see it, so I put a piece of paper behind it, and then the floral heart. I did show you the stripes stamp set. I thought I was going to use it. I ended up not using it, so please forgive me. But there's a nice little throwback to an older stamp set that if you have, I'm reminding you to use because it's fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to be stamping the floral heart in Intense Black ink by Simon Says Stamp because it's Copic safe, and that's what I'm going to be using today. And I'm stamping this one first because it's going to be my focal point. So I want to make sure that I get that placed properly before I try to fill in the rest of the card. So earlier on the blog, one of the girls on the design team had done a similar kind of layout with the floral heart, and I thought it was super pretty, and I thought it would be a great way to use that stamp highlighting technique. So here I'm using a very light gray to stamp my heart in the background. I stamped my focal point in black, and then the rest of them I'm stamping in a lighter gray. I used Fairy Dust by W+9. That was the closest light gray I had on hand. You can use whatever you have. So I wanted to just kind of bolster up that whole idea of it being a focal point, and so I decided to do a little bit of inking behind it. So I'm starting with Cracked Pistachio, and I'm just going to give it a nice little halo around the entire heart. I did go over the heart. I knew my Copic coloring was going to be strong enough that that wouldn't be a problem. If you're going for pastels, maybe mask the heart first so you don't mess up your colors. Then I switched to Peacock Feathers. I put that just in the center, and then this is Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm really just putting very little of that in the center. I kind of got progressively more blue with my greens as I went. I just thought that it would be a little pretty halo to put around the wreath. And then we're going to get into the Copic coloring. So I love little images like this. It's large enough to carry a card, but it's built up of a lot of little things, so you don't have to do a ton of blending. On the flowers I used 4 colors, on the leaves I used 3. You could even probably get away with 2. I just, sometimes you just get in the habit of something and you just stick with it. So I would recommend, if you're using to use something that is going to blend together but still give you some contrast. So for the flowers, I'm really just any place that 2 points meet is going to be darker, so you're going to add shading where your petals meet. Keep your tips highlighted if that is the way that you're coloring. Make sure to leave them a little bit lighter. And then any edges that are on top, try to leave those lighter. Otherwise you just kind of end up with a darker mess. And especially with these smaller images, that'll be easier to explain when we get to the leaves. It's hard talking about the petals that way. So I'm going to move on to the other flowers just so you can kind of see how I colored each one of them. For these, I wanted them to be orange, and you'll notice my color combination is 2 yellows, an orange, and a red. The reason that is because that yellow, Copics are transparent, so they will layer well, and that yellow gives me a lot of brightness, which I really, really love with the orange flowers, and then the red gives me a ton of depth. So, sometimes it can be difficult to get good contrast with the oranges. A lot of the Copic markers, the YRs or oranges, are pretty similar in color, so sometimes getting some contrast can be difficult. So you can shade with a brown, you can shade with a red, whatever look it is that you're going for in that specific card. I did the little berries in the same colors, and then I just picked 2, and I did show you with the violet that I used the VO1 and the VO4. I ended up actually going back and doing the VO4 and the VO9 because I felt like that VO1 just kind of got lost with all of the blue-green in the background. So don't feel like you can't change it up, just adapt it kind of as you go, because I do it all the time. In fact, that's why the stripes left, because I was going to use them and then I didn't. So as far as the leaves go, again, any point where 2 things meet, that's going to be your darkest. If something's laying on top of one another, you want to make sure that you include that shadow. So here for the rounded leaves, I decided I was going to make those blue-green, just to kind of break up the wreath a little bit and not do them all one color. But I'm really just shading up from where they're tucked behind those flowers. And then with the BG11, which is my lightest color, I'm coming in from the top so I don't wash out all of my shading. Because Copics are transparent, the lighter colors will remove darker color, and I didn't want to lose any of my shading. So here's where we're going to talk back about the objects laying on top of one another, because it makes most sense to, or it's easiest to explain it when we're looking at these leaves. So there's a bunch of leaves behind, and then there's one on top. When I say leave your edges lighter, I mean leave your edges lighter for the one on top, because you're going to have so much dark shading next to it, because those leaves are behind, that you want to make sure that those edges are light on the very top one so that it appears to be on top. If I had added dark shading to the edges of the one on top, it's really just going to look very dark overall and not dimensional, which is the look that, well, at least I'm going for. So if that's what you're trying to do, make sure you leave those areas lighter. One of my favorite things to do is add detail to things, and so I started adding little white dots to the leaves, and really, I'm telling you, I added them and they made no sense. I just wanted to make it a little more detailed and a little more pretty and feminine, so I added a bunch of white dots, and I think that they're pretty. So one of the things that I always do is outline all of my images. This is a EK Success journaling pen. You could use Copic Multiliner, you could use a Micron. The reason that I always go Copic Safe is because this right here. So after all was said and done, I didn't feel like it popped enough. So I'm going to go in and add a drop shadow. I always color as if my light source is in the top right, especially when I'm doing shadows. It's a hangover from high school. That's just when I took an art class. That's what they made us practice with, and I can't shake the habit. So it works for me. But I'm going to start with my darkest color, and I'm going to put that right up against my image. And you'll see even just adding the one darker color really starts to make it pop off the page. But as we blend that out into the background, it really does give it the look of being multi-dimensional, and that it's not just flat to your card. And that's why I'm such a fan of doing this little trick, because it's something that's so easy that will just really add a bit of a wow factor to your card. So I started with the C5, I went out to the C3, and then out to the C1, just so that everything was kind of blended. The second to last thing that I'm going to do is stamp the sentiment. This is actually from the My Favorite Nut set in the Floral Heart. It comes with a beautiful little script, I love you, but this one also fits inside of it, and I think it's super cute for Valentine. You can see here the card background looks a little different. I'm not really sure how I forgot to turn the camera on, but I used Hickory Smoke Distress Ink to kind of make my edges a bit darker and make the focal point pop a little bit more. And then I did put Clear Wink of Stella on the florals. So that's the entire card. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that maybe you guys will give this a try, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.